let's quickly look at African nationalism, right? In about less than 27 minutes, right? All right. We said basically nationalism is basically uniting people according to their according to their ethics, cultural backgrounds, history, anything that can bring that people have in that they have in common. You see, like common traits. You see, like you having friends because you share the same one, you share the same traits, right? You see, now that's the same thing that was about the African nationalism, right? You see, now, but what you need to understand is basically that now the African nationalism basically took place between 1902 and 1953, right? You see, that's when we saw the formation of the African nationalism, right? You see, now why did they feel the need to unite Africans? You see, now majority of the blacks and other races, they were basically deprived of their rights, right? You see, being deprived of your rights is basically being denied your what? It's basically being denied your rights, right? So you are, like as usual, you are not going to look at the introduction because it differs. They may ask you to discuss, they may ask you to what extent they may ask you to agree with the statement, right? You see, it will all depend on the question that they've asked. Now, the first initiative that they took in order to unite African people or to unite Africans was basically the formation of the African People's Organizations, right? It was basically formed in 1902. It basically known as the APO, right? African People's Organization. Now it was formed in Cape Town by Dr. I don't know how to pronounce that, Abdurrahman, in order to help in uniting Africans. You see, they said, okay, if we are going to say we are uniting, let's just unite under something, right? Now that's something that are going to unite is it's basically going to be the African People's Organization. They said, okay, in this African People's Organization, we are going to fight against the white segregationists. So someone who's a segregationist is basically someone who believes in racial separation. It means that they believe that the white should be here, the black should be here, the color should be it should be there, right? Now they started forming the African People's Organization was basically fighting against that to say, okay, why are you basically segregating us and denying us of our human rights that we are supposed to be given. Now the group included a small educated group of coloreds, and most of this the formation of this African People's Organization happened after the Anglo-Boer War, right? Now the Anglo-Boer War was when the British and the Dutch fought in South Africa, right? Mind you, they are all foreigners, but they are coming here to fight. You see, which saw the British emerge victorious, right? Now their focus was basically on the voting rights, to say, okay, we are going to look for our voting rights. We are going to look for our voting rights because at that time, black people, colored people were not allowed. They were not allowed to They were not allowed to vote. It basically started in the Cape Colony, like I said. It was formed in the Cape Town, right? It basically started in the Cape Colony to say, okay, as people in the Cape Town, we are asking for our rights and freedoms to vote. You see, now other regions they follow too, like the Transvaal, Natal, Orange Free State. You see, they also follow to say, okay, yes, we do want our rights to vote. You see, as black people, as colored people, right? So the first thing that they did, they basically signed a petition. You see, they signed a petition and they sent it to the British to say, hey, listen, we are signing this petition as a plea to say, okay, can you allow us to be given our rights in our country? But however, the petition fell into deaf ears, right? They were not granted they are not granted any rights at that time. But this was seen as a positive step towards nationalism, to say, okay, there is indeed progress in trying to unite black people as a whole, right? Yes, right. As we move on, and then we say, secondly, the African People's Organization was the formation of the SANNCC, right? The South African National Native Congress, right? Now the South African National Native Congress was basically formed in the 1912. Now its primary purpose was to oppose the human rights violations that black people were facing. Actually, not just black people, but also colored people and the rest of the people that were involved in in this saga, right? They were basically looking at it to say, okay, we are going to fight for our rights and freedoms that we are facing that we are facing as black people. You see, that was the whole purpose of the South African National Native Congress, right? You see, it was formed as a way to say, okay, we are going to fight against the human rights violation that our oppressor is doing to us. You see, why are we being deprived of our social rights? Why are we being deprived of our political rights? Why are we being deprived of our economic rights? Now, the South African National Native Congress was basically formed in 1912. Now, why was it formed? It was formed after the Union of South Africa was formed in the 1910. Now, in the 1910, they formed the Union of South Africa, right? Now, the Union of South Africa was basically a government that didn't consist of black people. Now, mind you, black people are the majority in South Africa at that time, but they are not included in the what? They are not included in the what do you call? They are not included in the Union of South Africa, which didn't make any sense, you see, because they are the majority. Now, one of the laws that they set out there was that they are going to take 87% of the land belongs to the government. Now, they didn't tell them straight that, listen, 87% of the land belongs to the whites. They said it belongs to the government. Now, mind you, the government only consists of what? Of white people. So that shows you that, okay, these things here, that shows you that, okay, everything here, that shows you that it's the whites are taking the what? They're taking the land. Now, the SANNC leaders, they met in Bloemfontein in 1912, right? Trying to figure out a way to say, okay, what exactly are we going to what? How exactly are we going to fight? Are we going to take this approach, right? Now, however, in 1923, the SANNC is changed to what? From that to the ANC, right? Which was basically known as the what? The African National Congress, right? Why did they change this? Because they started including other races, right? Indians, coloreds, whites that were being oppressed. They just said South Africa is for all of us. So anyone who's oppressed is allowed into the party. So which is why they named it the what? The ANC, African People's what? The African National Congress, you see. Yes, that's why they named it that. Right. Now, the SANNC, they continue to create what? They created alliances with influential people. Such influential people could include what? Traditional workers, right? Now, one of the leaders here was John Dube, right? Now, you would know that after the Union of South Africa was formed, he basically gave a speech saying that he's embarrassed on behalf of the oppressors, because it saw them taking away what? Majority of the land that they owned as black people, you see. So they needed to now, since they taken that land through the Native Act to say 87% of the land belong to the government, and then mind you, they are not the majority, right? So since they were led by John Dube, they said, okay, we are going to send, in 1914, they decided to say, okay, we are going to send a declaration to say, okay, we are pleading for help, right? They went on to the Supreme Court in London in England at that time. They went on to plead to say, we are being oppressed in our own country. See, we are being oppressed in our own country, to say these British have came and they've taken away our land. You see, they've taken away our land. We are being deprived of our rights. We are not being given any rights. But however, their appeal was not successful. You see, since it was not successful. Since the appeal was not successful, people didn't take that hard, you see, but they took it as inspiration to say, okay, you see, we are moving in the right direction. This shows that we still need to unite as Africans if we are going to achieve our rights and freedoms, right? You see, over the course of the years, right? We can still achieve our rights and freedoms. You see, this show the rise of African nationalism, right? Yes, right. Now, as we move on, you will see now that came the formation of trade unions, right? Trade unions are basically meant to fight for the rights of workers. Are basically meant to fight for the rights of workers, right? Workers like what? Black people, black people, colored people, Indian people, right? In the workplace, right? Now, because they were being discriminated. Now, they started forming these trade unions to say, okay, we are going to address the problems that we are facing in the workplace. Now, these trade unions, they first consisted of industrial and commercial workers, right? But they said, okay, however, we need to rampantly spread this thing, which means you need to spread it at the high speed, right? You see, we need to spread it at the what? At the high speed. So this is when they decided to what? They decided to basically join. They decided to join in also with the agriculture boys, and they started addressing the what? The hardships that these people are facing in the what? In the workplace. You see, to say, okay. Especially people who worked in farms, to say, why are we getting the minimum wage? Why are we not earning what we are supposed to be earning? You see, those are the things that they were basically trying to address at that time, right? You see, all right. And then we also said this basically showed that there was African unity, right, to fight against their oppressor through the laws in the workplace. And then we saw the formation of the SACP. Now remember when I told the SACP, right? Remember when I told you that the SANNC started including other races inside. Now, a lot of majority of the leaders black leaders at that time, they felt like this was the wrong step that the SANCC was taking, right? So what they decided to do was that they decided to break away from the party, right? One of the people that broke away from the party was Robert Sebukwe, who was one of the founders of the South African Communist Party, right? Now the South African Communist Party was a black only political party, right? It means it was fighting for the rights and freedoms of black people at that time. You see, right? Now they were addressing the grievances of They were addressing the grievances of black people, to say, okay, why are black people being oppressed in the workplace? So grievances are cries, right? Why are black people being oppressed in the workplace? Why are they not given any rights? Why are they not given any breaks? So you can imagine working 10 hours and not receiving any break, or going under a mine without protective gear. You see, that's the same thing that they were fighting against. You see, now. And then we also look at let me pause it here now, because and then I'll